Vibe coding is super easy, and today we're going to be doing it completely from scratch. Today, I'm going to be attempting to build Tetris completely from scratch just by prompting the AI in Cursor. Ideally, by the end of this video, we're going to have a complete prototype of Tetris, and if you follow along in real time, so will you. So with that being said, let's jump right into it and get ourselves a working version of Tetris. All right, and we're here in Cursor, ready to go. As we can see here, I've created a simple folder called Tetris JavaScript, which we're going to make sure we're in just a moment. And we're going to go ahead and actually build out Tetris completely here. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is simply type in, I want to build a full working prototype of Tetris. Now, I could provide additional context here if I was using some developer lingo, but for the most part of this, the whole purpose of us doing this is that we're vibe coding. We're pretending that we don't have any development experience and we're just trying to build it completely from scratch just by prompting the AI. So when it comes to actually getting the best result for code, typically giving it a simpler answer and then being able to build on top of that is the way to go, as opposed to giving what I traditionally say to do much more context. Of course, if there's more information you need to provide, doing that off the bat can be helpful. But in this case, assuming that we're just vibe coders and we're just trying to build it from scratch, I'm simply going to say, I want to build a full working prototype of Tetris in a Create React app. And I'm just going to go ahead and hit submit here. And as it says, it's going to help me create a Tetris game by using Create React App. Now, Create React App is something that I'm personally just familiar with, so if there's anything that I need to explain, I can still explain it. It might suggest typically to do like a Python game or some other variation of that, but in this case, we're just going to do something that I'm familiar with, and we're going to go ahead and hit run here. So as we can see here, we're going to go ahead and create this new React app. It's going to actually go ahead and install the packages, and as it says, it might take a while, installing React, React DOM, and what I imagine is probably React Router. And we're going to go ahead and run those step by step here. So now, as you can see in our Tetris JavaScript here, we have a actual folder called Tetris. So we're going to go ahead here and just let it do its thing, run everything. And as we can see, it's added all the packages, it's initialized a Git repository, and it's detected that we're using TypeScript. So now we're ready to go. The next thing it's going to ask me to do is actually navigate to the Tetris folder here. So I'm going to say run. And now we are finding ourselves in the actual Tetris folder. So now it's going to go ahead and just start writing all of the code for us right off the bat here. Boom. We have our tetromino types, and of course, we've got our position, we've got our game state, board width, board height. We have the different variations of them. As we can see here, very, very simple. But we've got our source, we've got our types, and all of these things are right here. And so now it says, let's create a custom hook to manage the game logic. And it's writing not only all of the game's logic, but also all of the game's design. So as we can see here, it's writing everything for us. So it's going to go ahead and just literally do this. I don't have to touch it at all. Now this is the part where things get tricky, because if you don't know exactly what you're doing, this might be where you start to run into a few errors and start to get a little bit discouraged. But don't worry, we're just going to let it completely run everything, and then we're going to go and actually make sure that everything is happening correctly. So as we can see here, it's gone ahead and created this source folder inside of the JavaScript folder directly, which isn't really what we want here. What we want in our source folder is for it to actually be in the Tetris folder. And as we can see here, we have a couple overlapping files. So what I'm going to go ahead and do here is actually make sure that we're in the JavaScript folder that we're actually supposed to be in, or rather the Tetris folder. And we're just going to go ahead and go to our terminal here. So if we go down to the bottom, we can see that it's waiting for approval. So while it's waiting for approval, I'm just going to go to the top here and select View Terminal. And now we have our terminal. And I'm just going to make sure that I'm actually in the Tetris folder, because even though it told me to go into the Tetris folder, it didn't actually appear to put me in there. So we're going to go ahead and just take some of the files from here. So as we can see, it's created app.css, app.tsx. So we're going to go ahead and delete the ones that it put here, because these are all the defaults, and these don't have anything that we actually want. And so now we're literally just going to take this source folder here that has everything like so, and we're just going to drag, and I'll select everything here. We're going to select all this, and we're literally going to drag this into our source folder here. And it's going to ask me if I want to move it, and I'm going to say yes. And it's going to say update the imports, and I'm going to say always. Okay, so now at this point, we have our updated source folder, and we have this one here we don't really need, so we can go ahead and just move it to trash and delete it. So now it's going to ask us to install the necessary dependencies and start the development server. So I'm going to go ahead and hit run here, and it's going to go ahead and actually put all of those in. And so now that those are installed, it's going to say, let's start the development server. I'm going to hit npm start. We're going to say that, and now we've got an error on our hands. And as we can see here, it could not read package.json, no such file or directory. As we can see here, there's no Tetris JavaScript package.json. So we're going to go ahead and add that to our chat here and just start using Cursor to actually debug what we've actually created. As we can see here, it figures out immediately what the project setup is, and it says, whoops, we're in the wrong directory, we're in the wrong folder. So we want to make sure that we're in the right one. So now we've actually navigated to it, and now we don't get the error. And it says that it started correctly. Oh, and here we go. We have our first one. We have our first Tetris piece here, and so as we can see, it's falling. I can't use the arrow keys. Oh, I can move it up and down though. But there we go. And game over. Okay. So as we can see here, it's not exactly working. So, oh, game over again. It has the Tetris pieces, but it's not working completely as intended. As we can see here, it's actually going and duplicating every single block. And obviously that's not what we want here. If I hit the pause button, we can see that as it's falling, it shouldn't be covering these up. So now we're going to navigate back to Cursor and see exactly what's going on here. So I'm going to go down to the bottom right here and I'm going to say, there is a bug. And then I'm going to state exactly what the bug is. When some pieces fall, the squares stay lit up where they fell. And so I'm going to go ahead and just put that in here. And it says, yep, that we have an issue with our board rendering logic where it's not properly handling the state. And so it's going to go ahead and actually go. And we can see here exactly what it's doing. So it says that it went and read use tetris.ts, and it says, yep, I see exactly what the issue is. The problem is how we're handling the board state. Let me just go ahead and fix that for you here. Now, remember, there are going to be some errors that happen specifically within the coding process here that it won't detect right away. There are going to be some issues that we might run into, but don't let that discourage you. Ideally, either looking it up on Google or just debugging it yourself would be a simple way just to get through that little small roadblock to having a great app here. So now we can see here that it's asking me if I want to take the changes, and I can go ahead and hit this button that says accept all. It's going to go ahead and do that. And now that we've got that going, we're going to see here that, if we've put that through correctly, let's navigate back to Google here, and we can say start. And there we go. Now the block is falling correctly. And in addition to that, I can actually use the arrow keys and start to move it back and forth. So let's play a game of Tetris. I don't actually know what the rotate button is. Is it R? I don't know what the rotate button is here. And then I can use down to move it down. And okay, there we go. So at this point, I haven't looked at what the controls are. It probably told me at some point, but I can't actually see what it is. So we're just going to be playing Tetris without moving any pieces here. And I just want to try and create a line just to see what happens. So, ooh, it's very hard to play Tetris when you can't rotate your pieces. And okay, I'm not the best Tetris player. That's a lie. I'm totally the best Tetris player. I just haven't played it in a really long time. Just need something that I could fill that gap with without being able to rotate it, and I don't know if it's going to happen. Okay, we're just going to pause it there for a second. I'm going to navigate back to Cursor and see exactly what the controls are for this. Okay, we can see we have arrow left and right, and arrow up is to rotate the piece. Okay, so arrow up is to rotate the piece. So I'm going to restart the game here, and I'm going to up. Okay, there we go. There we go. Now I can actually rotate the piece accordingly. And I mean, just like that, in literally 10 minutes, we now have a working prototype of Tetris. Up is the rotate key, down is the soft launch, and then we put that down there, and let's just play a simple game of Tetris, and let's see what happens when we actually get a Tetris here. We get a line, there we go, it goes down, and it disappears. And as we can see here, our score is now 100, and I imagine that if I get another one here, it's going to go ahead and give me a score of 200. Yep, and there we go. We can see that I'm just going to be able to do that completely until it's done. Ooh, a couple line pieces in a row here. So I think this is really fun. But now how can we take this a step further? Well, just as a bonus here, let me go ahead and navigate back to our actual AI section here. And I'm just going to say, let's improve the UI so the page doesn't scroll when I use the arrow keys, and it looks much brighter visually. Just going to go ahead and enter that in here. And it's going to say it's going to improve the UI by preventing page scrolling and making the page design brighter. You might have noticed when I was doing the up arrow key that the page would move around because it was scrolling accordingly. And now that may not be a deal breaker on a typical app. We want to make our app the best that it can possibly be here. So we're going to go ahead and just let it make all of those changes for us. And now, as I should point out, at this point, I have not written one singular line of code here. And now, once it's actually got all of the updated code here, updated CSS, JavaScript, TypeScript, etc., we're going to go ahead and again, just as we did previously, hit this accept all button here, and then it will take all that code, put it into our game, and then we can navigate back to our web browser and actually see what's happened. So there we go. We can hit accept all here, and now we've got those changes live. Let's navigate back here, and whoa, much brighter. As we can see here, we've got our score, and look at that. So now, when I actually go and rotate, we can see that now this is a full working prototype of Tetris that I can play myself. Very simple. And I think I'm about to get a Tetris here. And there we go. Boom. And if I wanted to make it better, throwing in animations, throwing in different sections of code that I think would make the game better. What if I wanted to add harder levels? What if I wanted to make it go faster? I mean, I could do all of those things just simply by prompting in Cursor. As we can see here, in a little under 10 minutes, I got a complete prototype of Tetris built just vibe coding. I didn't have to write one singular line of code. There were a couple things I had to do there and a couple bug fixes I wanted to explain, but for the most part, the Cursor AI could have actually solved all of those things because it's juggling some of the best AI models on the market. And as always, I can't wait to see what you build. I'm going to enjoy playing Tetris, but until next time, thank you so much for watching. My name is Josh Mountain, and I'll see you in the next one.